అందరికీ నమస్కారం. Since there are some gentlemen invitees who are not from this state who don't understand Telugu, I'll proceed in English, if you permit, the chair. President of this morning's conference, my good friend for the past 4 decades plus, Sri M.G.Gopal garu, the chief guest of this function, Sri Sanjeev Reddy garu. I think he's having a symbiotic relationship with trade unionism in India, the contemporary trade unionism. Sanjeev Reddy garu lekapothe trade unionism ee roju ledu, trade union lekapothe Sanjeev Reddy garu ledu. That kind of a symbiotic relationship exists, and I am extremely happy to see him very active and continuing to advise the office bearers and the staff of the public sector undertakings in general and all the working force in particular in the Union Bank of India. The high officials from the Union Bank Officers Congress, Sri Chatterjee, Sri Kakkar, distinguished senior executives of Union Bank of India, and in fact, I have seen a cult movement today when that movie was shown, and the two heroes of that cult are MMB and BA. Battin Arjun and MMB's names are very clearly heard. You know, cult behavior is very, very important these days because of the charisma that they provide to the followers of the group which they lead, and the leadership, the commitment, the dynamism, but for which I think his undisputed leadership, Mr. M.M. Bhaskara's undisputed leadership would not have continued and sustained for so long. I take the opportunity of very fondly remembering late 70s when we freshly joined the bank, youngsters 19, 20, 21, 22 years old. We were taken to Vijayawada, the Hotel Manorama, Mamata. We had the officers' conference, the breakaway groups, the discussions, the politics, you know, the seed of politics that was sown into our minds about doing good and supporting legitimate leaders, good leaders, criticizing the wrongdoers. And that's how I think M.M. Bhaskara garu has come up with flying colors as the General Secretary of the Officers Association then at that point of time. I also take the opportunity of very fondly recollecting our days of training with Ravindra Kumar, who is sitting here, our induction course phase 1 and phase 2 in the staff training college in Malabar Hills in Bombay. Those days, youngsters, beer and billiards as part of the game at that point of time. And I also see Mr. GSBM Jagadish Rao after a very long time, the Nirmal branch manager, and doyens, veterans like D.S. Prakash Rao garu, and his contemporaries like Mr. B.V.N. Murthy, Mr. Babu Gupta, Mr. Ravindranath, Mr. G.S. Rao, Mr. Chandavarkar, who used to come from Bangalore. He was the assistant general manager at that point of time. So we were all mentored by these senior officials. And if the seed of efficiency or integrity or legitimacy, whatever you may call, that has been sown into that generation, which has become a very old generation now. Maybe we are called youngsters in Western world, 65, 70, it's only middle age. But still, the seeds which were sown by then, I think, are very useful, and I personally feel that we owe a lot to that generation who trained us. Well, Mr. Bhaskara wanted me to be here to talk about my own experiences in public life and the integrity, ethics, and the value systems based on my experience, because I mostly spent in public sector. In fact, worked in public sector, though I served private sector after retirement in between 2017 and 24, where I was reappointed as Vigilance Commissioner. I also advised some private sector units. So basically the experience is common. And I don't have to talk about the institutional mechanism of vigilance in the country, the CVC, the members, the vigilance manuals, the inquiry procedures, inquiry officers, presenting officers, charge sheets, replies, written statements, punishments, going to CVC for advice. All that is well known to you. You are all very trained in that. You are all senior officials who understand. But if I have to get some insights from my own personal experience in life, which perhaps are not available in any textbooks. Maybe I'll share a couple of them. See, in this competitive world, you're all prone to pressures and, you're all expected to deliver. I remember in late 70s when I was in Union Bank Development Manager's office, the obsession then was deposit mobilization by hook or crook, by giving some temporary advances, by utilizing the discretionary authority given to the development managers and the branch managers, get the deposits, not bothering too much about the security of the advances being given. But the officers who had legitimacy in their professionalism and thoughts, they survived. So the principle, I would like to elaborate this, the principle basically is, which is also taught to several students while in service, that every individual will have to add value to an organization where you work. The proportion of value that you add to the organization directly depends on your own thoughts, your own thought process, the legitimacy of your thinking, how legitimate you are. If you are genuinely thinking of getting deposits and therefore tiding over the financial difficulties of, say, Kesarimal Karwa in Karimnagar, some of you remember, and giving 10,000 rupees unsecured overdraft, it's okay. But if there is no legitimacy in thinking and under the guise of getting a deposit for 15 days for window dressing in the month end or Friday end or year end, and therefore under the guise of that give some advance, which after you get transferred becomes NPA. Now, how do you differentiate between an officer who gives an advance under the guise of getting deposits and for his own selfish interests? Is the question. There are different ways of looking at it. Once I joined the Vigilance Commission, I started looking at things in a different way, different perspective. Because there are some sections of the people who do not keep up the credibility attributed to them, because there are two sides of the faces. So you will be able to add value, you will be able to establish your credibility only when your thinking is legitimate. Dharmam. Bhaskara garu ippude chepparu. Dharmanni eppudu paatistu unnanu. Adharmanni eppudu paatinchaledu. Kabatti inta paiki vacharu. They could sustain. Which is actually true. That is a life-learned lesson that everybody has to learn. If you follow in your thinking process legitimacy, that we have to do good, dharmam prakaram pani cheyali annappudu, now in that system what happens is, when you have legitimacy in thinking and also you have the capacity, the managerial capacity to deliver, the financial capacity to deliver, the organization which is there to take you forward, if you develop this, then the critical factor that makes or mars things, which will either damage you or which will take you up, is the support that you get from your own colleagues, from your superiors, from your subordinates, from the press, from the judiciary, from all walks of life. So you are accountable these days to so many people, to so many stakeholders, your own consumers, your own subordinates. Therefore, the fundamental principle that I have learned in life is, once your thinking is legitimate and you have the capacity to deliver based by virtue of your training, background, mentorship, you will get support from all sectors, and then you will be able to add value to the organization much better than the officials who do not have this kind of a legitimate thinking, which is the bottom line, which we should never forget. Now, how do you know whether the person is legitimate or not? By looking at his face, you will not be able to appreciate whether his thinking is legitimate or not. So you have to demonstrate this legitimate thinking also in your day-to-day life, day-to-day way and style of working. In fact, one acronym was coined in the days of, I think it was in 90s, 95, in the government itself. The present CM of Andhra Pradesh was also CM of combined AP then. It's called SMART, S-M-A-R-T. The acronym SMART stands for simple, moral, accountable, responsive, and transparent. So as long as you, as the branch manager or the zonal head sitting in the chair, or simple, who is approachable, who doesn't wear suit and jacket and goes to in those days we used to call them as differential interest rate, DIR customers, poor people getting loans at 4% interest. You jacket, suit and boot, you go to him, he'll not open up and he'll not tell you your problems. Therefore, and depending upon the change in the environment, you should accordingly maybe be approachable and provide access. So therefore, simple and morality, I don't have to explain, it's all very, very clear. Simple, moral, accountable, responsive, transparent. Then, even if something goes wrong somewhere, example, let us take the example of my own Union Bank of India. Though I am neither retired nor working, I am resigned, I am somewhere in between. They are all working officers, they are all retired officers, I am a resigned officer. So, Union Bank of India, I read in the newspaper some time ago that our famous Krishnamurthy, who is the chief economic advisor at that point of time, he was, I think subsequently he went to IMF and he has been sacked. He has been asked to come back from IMF. But I suppose nothing happened to the chairman of Union Bank of India. I don't know whether chairman encouraged or somebody at next level encouraged. This guy writes a book, all right, good economist, PhD, and he writes a book about India, envisioning and makes the bank spend 7.5 crores or something. I don't exactly remember the amount. Is it Union Bank of India? That book was made to be distributed to all the customers, spending 7.5 crore rupees. Now, how do you look at this particular case? In this particular case, if I sit in the chair, though of course I couldn't reach that level, but I have no regrets. Madam Ranjana Kumar, who was the first CMD of Indian Bank, women CMD of Indian Bank, Bank of India, NABARD chairman, she settled down in Hyderabad after she quit as Vigilance Commissioner. And Gopal, don't worry, you joined at a very young age, you would have become CMD of one or two banks like me. But ultimately, I also became Vigilance Commissioner, you have also become Vigilance Commissioner, you haven't lost much. So therefore, she used to tell me. But the point there is, Union Bank of India, the chairperson, if he or she or whoever it, I don't know, gives instructions for buying this book to be distributed to the customers, I have a discretion as chairman of the board to give gifts to the customers, valued customers. Whether I take them to a 5-star hotel, give them a dinner costing maybe 1,500 per head, I buy a book at a discounted price of 750, which is in the good of the customers, at least the elite customers, who will be able to have advanced information about India. How do you envision India in next 100 years, whatever it is, whatever is the title of the book. My own understanding is because of the legitimacy established by that particular person, officer sitting there, saying yes, he or she has used the discretion, instead of giving away some party, she bought a book and gave. It's not a benefit given to Arvind Subramaniam, Krishnamurthy, or whatever is the name. I am not here to name the persons or the point. How do you establish your credibility? How do you get out of the situations depends upon how legitimate your working has been. What has been your experience in the bank? What has been the experience of others who dealt with you for so long? At the same time, look at another case of maybe another bank chief executive who was appointed as chief executive. I'm not just talking about banks because most of them are bankers here. You'll be able to connect yourself to the particular thought process. Some CMD who did something wrong somewhere in a bank and without telling that there is a vigilance problem, he was made CMD. Subsequently, I think he has been reverted or something from ED's rank to GM's rank. So therefore, destiny chases you and one can't escape. But once your process of thinking is very clear and your legitimacy is established, I think you will be able to get out of the situations mostly. Now here, one word of caution which I have to mention is that we all have to pass through a test in life, be it personal life or be it your professional life. Everybody, or at least most of you, would have undergone some inquiry. Maybe a departmental inquiry or some probe, if it is not a departmental inquiry, by your CVO, and then would have come out of it very successfully because of the deeds that are there on file. If you take a decision, you write a speaking order saying for these reasons I have taken a decision. So it's very, very important to know that you have to take risks, you have to take calculated risks, you will have to pass through tests because you will be tested. If not by your bosses, by the God, the Almighty, He will test you. You will have to pass those tests. So this is the principle if we keep at the back of our minds. I think by and large, the life will be good and we'll be able to get out of these problems. The third, before I conclude, there are lots of things we can discuss, but maybe in future. The third thing before I conclude, I would like to say that most often you will find solutions which are very simple, apparently, which generally are very, very powerful solutions. So most of these times, simple solutions become very, very powerful solutions. Now this I am trying to tell you in the context of the changing dynamics, changing situation the world over, in the country, in the, say, public sector, in the banking, for instance. Days have gone when maybe finance ministry was looking at some box and tick, okay, your credit deposit ratio or priority sector lending percentage, or your percentage to weaker sections or to agriculture, or your NPAs, whether they are according to norms or not, and then tick mark and finish, matter closed. No external audit pointing out any problems, no internal auditor pointing out any problems, maybe somewhere there is a collusion, all right, but today I think the trend is totally changing. That is the future. The youngsters who are particularly here, because they are retired people, they are also youngsters who are working here. Change, as Charles Darwin has said, it's not the most strongest, not the most intelligent that survives, but it is the one who is the most responsive to change. So in the changing circumstances, unless you change yourself, adapt to the technologies, we don't go into depth, but technologies, adapt, and then be part of the change, you will be in the background and there will be problems. So as I was mentioning, in the banking context, it's not going to be merely, ticking the, checklist and saying everything is hunky-dory, everything is all right. No. Your business processes, your business models are going to be checked by RBI or Finance Ministry or some external auditor to see whether you understand what you are doing. I'm told very recently, because this I connected to my own work as MD of course this is the last point that I'm going to make and I close it. As MD of Metropolitan Water Supply Sewerage Board long time back in 2004, I used to have excellent top-class chartered accountant as Director of Finance and Chief General Manager as Director of Finance, as CGM Finance. I used to get the statements, and luckily or unluckily for them, maybe luckily for them also eventually, I know some accounts, I know commerce, I passed CAAB also in a short period of time in the bank. I studied economics, I took economics as an optional for civils. So I used to get the statements. And I used to get a lot of revenue reflected in the income and expenditure statement that I get. Oh, recovery is 93 crores, 85 crores this month, 70 crores this month. Then, when I asked my Director of Finance, why are we not making payments of salaries in time? Why are we not making payments to the contractors every time I have a problem? And you are showing your revenues, operating expenditure, operating income, operational surplus. Forget about fixed, there are no fixed deposits for non-operational income from the banks. Then the trick that was being played was, because my predecessor some time back, it seems, was telling that we should have a very rosy picture. The size of the balance sheet has to go up. It has to be a very rosy income and expenditure statement or subsequently profit and loss account. And then it should be impressive. Therefore, my Director of Finance made it very impressive by totaling up all the bills that are generated. How do you generate bills? There's some machine which prints bills very fast. You give a command and you get 1 lakh bills in about 2 hours, 3 hours time. Send print command to Vijayawada, some printer, fast reprographic machines as they were called. Get the bills. Now the bills are given to our divisions. They are called general managers. General managers give to managers and they show the bills into the desks. The bills are not distributed because they were afraid at that point of time. If the bill is given to customer, GSBM Jagadish Rao, he'll say, what nonsense. You have never given me water, you are giving me a bill. So my own workers were scared of giving the bills where they were not confident that the water supplies were proper. But thanks to, there must be some chartered accountants here, excuse me for saying so, thanks to the system called accrual accounting system, In fact, it is also not correct to treat everything which is billed as income. In fact, whatever is actually received has to be shown as income, not that accrued. Expenditure can be shown based on accruals, but not income. My director of finance very sincerely used to show that as income. But there is no cash flow. Ultimately, in the balance sheet, there are sundry debtors, receivables. Where is the money gone? Where is the balance sheet? Where is your income? Where are the salaries? Where are the contractors' payments? I'm saying this because when I read in the newspapers recently that some bank, IndusInd Bank or some bank, their exposure to foreign exchange, maybe derivatives, something, I don't understand much. I didn't go into details. They had incurred a loss of nearly 2,000 crores, which was kept under the carpet and ultimately charged to the profit and loss account as a loss. Overnight, 2,000 crores for such a bank, piggy bank, 2,000 crores bank is gone and out, finished. How will you survive? So, you don't respect internal auditors. Internal auditors are our own people. When they give an internal audit, advice, suggestion, advisory, alert note, we should respect them and say, the manager would say, very dynamic manager, whoever says, auditors are very bogus, I don't care, I do what I want. No, respect the internal auditor, give replies, proper replies to him, justify what you are doing, so that ultimately it doesn't cross a particular limit. Before external auditors or newspapers, your own bosses point out, your top management, your board of directors, respond to the chief vigilance officer or internal auditors, so that suddenly, there is a topsy-turvy situation and bank. There is another bank, I am told, which has to close operations because they lost money. And not that they didn't understand this problem, but maybe some collusion somewhere. So therefore, you have to, simple solutions. What are simple solutions? At the right point of time, if the manager who is supposed to be looking at it had a question saying that this cannot be, at least there should be provisioning done. If it is a contingent liability or whatever it is, some provisioning will have to be done. But then it's all ultimately shown. So therefore, simple solution is look at it at the right point of time. Finally, the simple solution that I found, and how do you find simple solutions is the ultimate thing I say and close it. I was UBOC, since I was asked to talk from my personal experiences, people can relate instead of talking from books and manuals. There used to be a huge, big problem, of course, maybe, I don't know, it sustained actually that intervention which was brought. Huge crowds before Lord standing there, and you have to have darshan. People were being pushed, jostled, pickpocketed by the Srivari Sevaks who were going on either side. And women carrying children, old people, afraid of falling down, whether they should have darshan of Lord or whether they should take care of themselves. Was the question. I was standing as an executive officer of TTD, having worked as sub-collector, collector, and understood problems, people, how stampedes can take place, how our job is to prevent entire district administration. Now, the point which I am trying to focus, of course, the problem was solved ultimately, but through a simple solution. And the simple solutions come when you meditate. Meditate meaning think of those problems. As Robin Sharma said, you get up at 5 o'clock in the morning, the 5 a.m. club. And then ultimately, your serotonin or dopamine, whatever the hormones, which are very good hormones for you, they will make you think as to how this problem should be solved, and you will get thoughts. You implement them, and the problems are solved. So that's what I thought I should share with you in this unstructured kind of, pep talk, so to say, with all of you. Thank you very much for giving this opportunity. And I congratulate Bhaskar Rao before I concluding, because while the state of Telangana and Andhra have bifurcated, the assets have been bifurcated, the staff have been bifurcated, but the Congress, Union Bank Officers Congress, is the same for Telangana and Andhra Pradesh together. Continue it and wish you all the very best. Thank you.